Hello and welcome to my channel. This is brand new for me. I am actually recording for the first time ever my podcast episodes that I normally do in my PJs, looking all sorts of states. I'm actually recording them to put them on my YouTube channel so you can watch along as well as listen. And I'm sorry for all of the facial expressions that I pull that no one normally gets to see. But if you prefer to listen, you can, of course, just come over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts and listen on the go. But if you're here to see my face, we're going to get into it. Today's episode, I am talking all about evergreen content and how to create it. My 3 top tips. I hope you find them useful. And if you like this new format, come and let me know, because I might continue it or I might just completely abandon it like most things. Even as a content creator, I still cringe whenever I see my face or listen to my voice. But anyway, let's get into it. Well, hello, my little loves, and welcome back to a new format of my podcast, Content Tea with G. I am G. I have been thinking about recording my podcast episodes for a while now, but let's face it, if you've ever tried to do this, the actual process is so long if you don't have the right equipment. Enter the right equipment. So here we are, and I'm going to test it out and see what you guys think. So if you like it like this, if you like watching as opposed to listening, let me know. So I am here in my office, which is where I record all of my podcast episodes. For now, I may think about going into a studio at some point, but for now, this setup just works. And why overcomplicate things if you don't need to, right? In this episode, I want to chat to you about evergreen content. It is something that people always say to me, how can you really get evergreen content? Repurpose, we all hear it all the time, repurpose your content, but actually you can. And I'm going to share with you exactly my process. The other day when I was doom scrolling very willingly, I noticed that an old post, a recent post, but maybe a few months old, was getting a bit of traction again. And I was kind of like, what is this? Why is it getting likes? A random follow? What? But it got me thinking that this is actually the magic of evergreen content. The type of content that keeps on working long after it's been posted, which, let's be honest, is the dream that you are looking for, right? So in this episode, I'm going to walk you through 3 things that you can start using straight away in your content. Number one. The first thing that you need to get right when you're thinking about evergreen content is, what are you actually talking about? Evergreen content is not about being trendy or following trends. It's actually about being timeless. And by this, I mean focusing on those problems that your clients or your ideal clients, your audience, always faces. You can use questions that people ask you repeatedly to form your evergreen content really easily. Evergreen content is normally quite basic. It's stuff that you're like, surely people don't want to know that. Surely people already know that. But actually, they don't. If you have people coming to you saying, I've tried this, I don't know how to do this, I keep trying this way, or how do you do this? This is part of your evergreen content. It's those frustrations and the, is this normal? Why can't I do this kind of questions as well. I want you to think about things that maybe don't go out of fashion. For example, if you are a social media manager, it's highly likely that people will always want to know, how do I grow my social media without spending every single second on social media? That would be something that's so evergreen, because it's a question and a frustration and a, oh my gosh, how do I do this kind of question that people always come to you with. For me personally, I think people always say, how do you do this in Canva? And those things do change, don't get me wrong, because of course Canva changes. As we love it, it gets new updates and new features and everything else. But more often than not, people will say stuff like, how do I size this in Canva? Or how do I upload my brand kit into Canva? These are things that I get asked all the time. And okay, no question is basic, right? Because if you're just learning it, or if you forget it, or if you don't have time to be in Canva every day like me, of course you're going to be like, where is that? So it's not really about thinking that the evergreen content has to be super basic. It's just thinking about, what is your audience looking for? What do they always ask you? If I were you, I would write a long list of questions from your brain, but mostly from questions that people have asked you, from your frequently asked questions, from DMs, from any comments. And if you are just starting to post content on social or just starting with your social media channels, look at other competitors. What are other people asking on your competitors' socials? For example, if you are a yoga instructor and you have just started on your social media, you have no comments, hardly any content, no interactions, all of that kind of thing. Look at your competitors. What are other people commenting? Are they asking, how do I do a down dog? Or I have a spinal injury, what can I do? What kind of questions are they asking that might be evergreen that you can add to your list because you can create content that helps those questions that are already being asked? Number 2, my top tip for evergreen content, number 2, would be to keep the format super simple. I think it just works best when it's clear, repeatable. You don't need to reinvent that wheel every single time. When I create my own content in Canva, I try to do it all on one project. And now that Canva has the resize feature within the same project, that means that you really can keep everything within one project. You could have square graphics, you can have real size graphics, you can have portrait, whatever, all in the same project. But why I like to do this is because when I've got those evergreen content ideas, I can create one project full of evergreen stuff. And then when I want to repurpose it, instead of like downloading it from Instagram, I can just go back into the original Canva project, tweak some of those colors, maybe update a few pictures or whatever if I need to, and I have the same piece of content. So it's easy to repurpose for me. And this is why I think you should keep it as simple as possible. So by simple, I mean static graphics, maybe some carousel posts, real covers, that kind of thing. Don't be thinking fancy edits and stuff like that. There's absolutely no need to have that much intricacy when it comes to evergreen content. The message is still going to hit home if it is clear, repeatable, to the point. I try and think if these formats make sense now, they'll probably make sense in a year's time. I do think that Instagram will always switch up that focus, like trial reels are now a thing. Reels were once popular, then it was carousels, and then they're pushing static graphics. But the content formats haven't really changed between those couple. It's not like all of a sudden you can do grid boomerangs. I don't know, hopefully that won't ever be a thing, but you don't know like what they're gonna focus on, but the formats aren't really changing that much. I would take one evergreen idea and stretch it out as much as possible. I would make an email out of it. Of course, I'm gonna slightly tweak it, but I'd make a blog post, I'd try and do a podcast episode like this one, maybe a YouTube video like this one. I would try and repurpose that and reformat it as much as I could, but the idea stays the same. I mean, me talking about evergreen content ideas in this episode is not something new for me. I have talked about this so many times because loads of people want to know, how do we take the same idea and make it work for us? You are not being lazy, and I know it feels like you are because you're like, well, I've talked about this already, my audience is bored. But there are so many people that haven't yet discovered your content that might just be looking for that exact evergreen question they've been Googling or they've been on Reddit trying to find an answer for, that you have created content about. I really feel like evergreen content gives you a bit of permission, to like work less or work smarter, not harder, that kind of thing. And it really goes a long way to help you show up consistently as well. And the last top tip I have for you today on evergreen content is to ignore the trends. I do think trend-led content has a place, absolutely, of course it does. But what I see time and time again is that people don't know what to post. So they do a quick scroll, they identify a trend, they think, oh, I've seen a couple of people posting this, must be a trend, I'm gonna jump on it quick. So they jump on that trend, it either lands or it sort of doesn't land and then they're disappointed. But actually, what is that strategy behind it? If you're just doing trend-led content, you're always going to be chasing your tail because you're going to have to create it in the moment and then post it as soon as possible. Or you're just not really going to have any sort of clear direction. And that's not me saying that trend-led content doesn't have a place. I absolutely think it does. I like some trends. I jump on them when I can. I'm not going to stress myself out. No, we're not Stressy McStressmason over here. No, we're not. But if I'm thinking about creating evergreen content, I want to future-proof it. Look at me using the big words. Future-proof it means not hopping on those trends that might not make sense in like 6 months' time, especially like when Taylor Swift brings out a new album and everyone's like, oh, Swiftie Mania, and they do content like that. Like, it's probably not going to age as fast, but in a year's time, people will be like, why is she so obsessed with Taylor Swift? I mean, I don't know. If you're thinking about evergreen content, keep it timeless. Make sure that it would still be relevant in a year's time. Ask yourself, would this still make sense to somebody without the context of what's happening around in the world today? If the answer is yes, you're on to a winner, kid. I do want to say though that just because it's evergreen, it doesn't mean it has to be boring. And a bonus top tip, I mean, I think we've done the 3, but if not, this is one to just add in the mix. The bonus tip that I would have is look back at your camera roll, at what you posted this time last year, because chances are like a lot of seasonal content probably is going to be evergreen. For example, I do this every year and I'm very open about saying it, but now that you know this, you will probably go onto my social and be like, is this last year's content? We want fresh content, please, G. But what I do every Christmas is I time lapse putting up the tree with my daughter. And I've done it since she was maybe like 3 and didn't know what was happening. And I've always done it on my iPhone. So, you know, previous attempts haven't been as successful as I would like them to be. But I do a time lapse of us putting up the tree. It's mainly me putting up the tree, but as she's got older, unless she gets bored, and we just put up the tree together, and I keep it for the memes, you know, for the memories. But what I've started doing probably the last 3 years now is I take the last year's time lapse and I make it into like 2 reels or something using little bits, little snippets. And I post something Christmas related, probably about logging off during Christmas because I'm a big fan of that. But something about Christmas content or something, and I use that footage because to me that is evergreen. Obviously, as my daughter ages, I'm probably not going to be able to use it forever, but it's Christmas or festive related content. So it really works when I'm still delivering that kind of festive message and I just need some festive content in the background as my B-roll. So this is super useful. Like if you're like me, you keep everything on your iPhone. I mean, I think I have like, let me have a look, probably, I don't know, 1,500 million pictures. I did actually do a big digital detox over the summer. Go me. Let me say, okay, so I only have 5,000 videos and like 22,000 images. So we're not doing too bad, she says. But if you're anything like me, you've got everything on your iPhone anyway. You know, I've got like 4 or 5 summers and Christmases worth of content there that is seasonal that I can easily repurpose into something evergreen. So if you can, back up all your footage, put it somewhere if it's not to live on your iPhone or your phone. I use Dropbox, but you could use Google Drive or other alternatives, of course, and just have that as a backup so that when you think, what is evergreen, what kind of times of the year, you know, it could be that you live in a country that is full of snow, for example, and your business is ski related. Well, your footage, every time you take an image or a video of the snow, is evergreen. All you have to do is give it a different message, but it could even be that there's always something that happens on the ski slopes in February. So that is evergreen content for you. And I think that you can really utilize this to your own industry, and it just takes a little bit of thinking. But the first step, just to reiterate what I said earlier, is to make a list of questions that people always ask you or that you find just being asked in conversation. You know, maybe it's like discovery calls or when you go onto a forum, or even if you're in class or in session or clinic or whatever. If people ask the same things, there is your evergreen content. Make it timeless, make sure that it makes sense in a year's time, and keep it super simple. We're not overcomplicating things here. We're just not doing it. That is how I would personally create evergreen content and advise my clients to create it as well. So I hope that this episode has helped you and inspired you, because, you know, we like to inspire every now and again, but I hope that it's really motivated you too to think, what is it I can create that I already have that actually I can repurpose again in a couple of months?
You've been listening to Content Tea with G. That's me. I'm G from Ray of Social, and I create banging Canva graphics for you to post on your social media. This podcast has been around for a little while now, but did you know that the majority of you lovely listeners haven't yet hit that subscribe button and followed along? Now come closer, huddle in, because I want to make you a promise right now, just us. If you could do me a huge favour, hit that subscribe button on this podcast. I promise I will work my little butt off to make sure that every episode is as best as it can possibly be from now until forever. Forever, ever, forever, ever. I cannot tell you just how much every subscriber, every share, and every rating means to me. If you could hit that little subscribe button, it's just a little button, but it has a huge impact for me and my business. It means I get to continue to bring you all the totally free advice and tips and stuff to help you create better content for your business. I would so appreciate it. In the meantime, come and find me over at Ray of Social on your preferred platform. Thank you very much for being a friend. I'm going to get out your ears until next time.